And we're back, and let's quickly get to the phones. Sally is calling from Helena. Sally, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, and a very interesting program this morning, and thanks for the opportunity to share some information with Congressman Rehberg. I have read a little article from Grasstops USA. It's an internet blog, and they are talking about how America seems to want to rush into the European system of health care, and they have some statistics from the recent study of cancer patients in the United States showing that they have a much higher survival rate than European cancer patients. For example, in this Lancet Oncology, they said that the survival rate for men 5 years after diagnosis is 66.3% in America, and it drops to 47.3% in Europe.
Well, let's see what Congressman Rehberg has to say about that, Denny.
Well, one of the things we do is we do a comparative analysis in government between other states and between other countries, and we're not adverse to taking the best of what other countries might provide, even to the extent that when I traveled with Senator Baucus down to Cuba, we went down and looked at some biomedical facilities down there that were really phenomenal. They have some state-of-the-art. And that's a dictatorship, and so maybe we don't like their government, but that doesn't mean we can't steal from their technology and work in trying to improve our own system. But what we don't want to do, and this came home to me in an entirely different scenario up in Plentywood with a fire at a school where they put the kids in a bowling alley and provided a different kind of an education, and we saw the kids' grades drop off for a couple of years. That was called experimentation. What you don't want to do is you don't want to experiment with the structure of our medical system and destroy something that has served us very well. And we show up in the top of many categories. And so demonstration projects, pilot projects, looking at what other countries do, we're pretty proud of our system, but it's by far from being perfect and certainly much more expensive than we want it to be.
Let me ask another question here. This one came in by email. Does Congressman Rehberg wear cowboy boots to meetings and sessions in Washington? And by the way, Ward, I just checked. He's wearing boots right now. Anyway, he says maybe if he does wear cowboy boots, he could put on a pair of spurs, and you might get a little more action out of Congress this way.
Well, I do always wear cowboy boots, and it's probably because I started wearing them as a kid. I got a real narrow foot, so Al's Bootery is I don't know if we're advertising for them, but they're about the only place that I've ever found. There's one in Butte where I could buy boots. Yeah. I just can't find shoes for this A foot, and I've always worn cowboy boots, and I continue to do that, except for when I'm wearing tennis shoes.
Well, there's a boot caucus, isn't there?
There is a boot, and I have a political action committee called Boot Pack. And I'm known for being one of the Westerners, and in fact, I'm certainly being courted right now by some of the presidential nominees on our side of the aisle because they all want representation for the Rocky Mountain West. But I'm holding out. I'm telling these Republicans that are running for president that until I see that you have a clear understanding or knowledge or want to learn about Western issues, I've got a real problem with allowing my name to be associated with your campaign. I have offered to put a group together of Western congressmen and women, and we sit down and we write out what we believe to be the Republican philosophy as far as natural resource management, energy policy, and such. And we'll make that available to all the candidates. So Giuliani and Romney and Duncan Hunter and Ron Paul, they can all, Fred Thompson, they can all see our work product. We're not going to pick or choose a nominee. Let's let the American public and certainly the Democrats and the Republicans and the Independents pick their own candidate. But I want to make myself available to trying to educate them. I do have spurs in my office as well, sitting on the table, and if necessary, I certainly could put them on. But I've found that people have been very open to working with me, and all that they ask and I ask is that I will try and understand their issues. One of the guys I have the biggest problem with back in Washington is from downtown New York City. And when I say we come from all aspects of life, before he was a congressman, he was a state legislator, and before that, he was a toll booth collector on one of the parkways in New York City. And a toll booth collector can be elected to the United States Congress. Isn't that cool?
What a country.
It is. It's a great country. But the problem is he keeps coming out to Yellowstone Park and trying to tell us, how to try and manage brucellosis in our national park, and it's frustrating to us. And so I tell him, if I will try and better understand your perspective of downtown New York City, if you won't come out to Montana and try and tell us without a clear understanding of the problems that we've got in trying to manage brucellosis in the park. And so it's working together. So I probably wouldn't spur him, but I'm not adverse to kind of nudging him with the toe of my boot occasionally.
You can go down the hall, clinking all the way on those marble floors there in the Capitol with your spurs. That's perfectly okay with us. Denny, we're out of time this morning, and we've got to get going, make room for the next person here on this station. But you're going to be here for another couple of days. I'd really like to have you back, and I'll tell you why. It's been kind of fun taking some calls from listeners to find out what they have on their minds and questions that they may have for you. And it just seems like we never have enough time. Yep. So can we do that?
We can certainly try to do that.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Well, we got to go. Thank you very much for listening. We will be back again tomorrow. Tomorrow, we'll have the Secretary of State as our guest here on the Voices of Montana.
You've been listening to the